When you think of Austin Butler today, it's almost impossible not to picture him in the rhinestone-studded jumpsuit, slicked back hair, and that soulful southern drawl, the Elvis Presley, that shook up the world in Baz Luhrmann's 2022 biopic, Elvis. But to truly understand Austin Butler, you've got to rewind the tape much further back. Because before the Oscar nominations, before standing toe-to-toe with Tom Hanks, before the headlines declared him Hollywood's next leading man, Austin was just a quiet, introspective kid from Anaheim, California. And his story. It's not your typical child star makes it big tale. It's a slow burn. A story of persistence, of grief, of someone who nearly walked away from the spotlight before stepping back in and lighting up the whole damn room. Disneyland than for churning out movie stars. His family was modest, tight-knit, and Austin. He wasn't the loud, attention-seeking type. In fact, he was the opposite. He described himself as shy, a little awkward, and deeply imaginative. His parents divorced when he was 7, which shaped a lot of his early introspection. Instead of acting out, he turned inward, building worlds in his head, tinkering with music, teaching himself guitar and piano just because it felt right. He didn't come from a family of actors, but fate nudged him in that direction. At 13, while accompanying his stepbrother to an acting class, a manager noticed Austin's potential. That encounter was the first domino to fall. Before long, he was auditioning for small roles on Nickelodeon and Disney Channel, the usual breeding grounds for American teen stars. Austin started to build a resume with shows like Zoe 101, Hannah Montana, iCarly, and later Switched at Birth and The Carrie Diaries. He had the look, clean-cut, charming, soulful eyes. But deep down, he always felt like an outsider in the teen star world. He didn't crave fame the way others did. And over time, that gap between the roles he was playing and the kind of artist he wanted to be, it widened. By his early 20s, the Hollywood sparkle had worn off. He was auditioning for roles he didn't care about in projects he didn't believe in. And then in 2014, something happened that shattered his world. His mother, Lori, passed away after battling cancer. Austin was crushed. "She was my best friend," he said in multiple interviews. Losing her was like losing the part of himself that believed everything would be okay. For a while, he considered walking away from acting entirely. But fate wasn't done with Austin Butler. In 2019, director Baz Luhrmann began casting for the lead role in Elvis. The search was global. Every big young actor in Hollywood wanted it. But Austin? He didn't chase it like a prize. He auditioned by sending a tape of himself singing Unchained Melody, sitting alone at his piano, raw and broken. Baz later said there was pain in his performance, not just acting. It was something real. Austin got the role. And what followed was 2 years of complete transformation. He read everything about Elvis, watched hours of footage, lived and breathed like the king. He even started talking like him so much, so his voice wouldn't go back to normal for nearly a year after filming Wrapped. The performance was staggering. Critics raved. Fans were stunned. Austin Butler wasn't imitating Elvis, he became him. That role earned him a Golden Globe and an Academy Award nomination for Best Actor. But more than awards, it gave Austin something deeper: belief. In himself, in his craft, in the idea that maybe, just maybe, he was born to do this. You'd think that after playing Elvis Presley, life would slow down for Austin Butler. But that couldn't be further from the truth. After Elvis, everything changed, not just his career, but his very existence. He's admitted that when the cameras stopped rolling, the ghost of Elvis didn't just vanish. It haunted him. For months, Austin couldn't shake off the deep southern twang in his voice. He would wake up in the middle of the night thinking he was still on set, still wearing that iconic jumpsuit, still being Elvis. "I didn't even realize how much my body language and voice had shifted," he said. "It wasn't an act anymore, it was just me." That kind of total immersion takes a toll. Butler described the post-filming months as a period of disorientation. He had to rediscover who he was without Elvis living inside him. Therapy helped, so did traveling and reconnecting with friends. But the truth is, Austin was never going to be the same. And he's okay with that. Because becoming Elvis gave him not just fame, but a window into his own depth, a place he didn't know existed within him until he let himself drown in the king of rock and roll. After Elvis, Austin knew he had to choose his next role carefully. He didn't want to be typecast. That's when Caught Stealing came along, a dark, violent noir film adapted from Charlie Huston's cult novel. In Caught Stealing, Austin plays Hank Thompson, a washed-up former baseball player who gets tangled up in a brutal underworld of crime in New York City. It's gritty, pulpy, nothing like the glitz of Elvis. What attracted Austin to Caught Stealing wasn't just the script, it was the chance to shed every ounce of polish and pretty boy charm people might associate with him. Hank is messy, angry, and desperate, and Austin wanted to feel all of that on screen. In interviews, he said, "I didn't want to be anyone's idea of the leading man. I wanted to bleed, to get dirty, to lose myself again, but in a completely different way." Filming Caught Stealing was brutal. Long nights, harsh winters in New York, and scenes that pushed Austin to physical and emotional exhaustion. But he emerged from it sharper, grittier, more assured of the kind of actor he was becoming. Behind the smoldering stares and award-winning performances, Austin Butler is at his core a deeply reflective and intentional human being. Fame may have embraced him post-Elvis, but it didn't distract him from the quieter parts of life that keep him grounded. He's famously private. Unlike many of his Hollywood peers, Austin isn't one to broadcast his life on social media. Instead, he's often found reading philosophy, playing guitar alone, or spending hours writing in journals, not because he's chasing content, but because that's who he is at his core. After the whirlwind of Elvis, Butler confessed he had to reconnect with his own voice both literally and figuratively. That meant stripping away the layers of characters he'd embodied and asking himself, who is Austin Butler when the cameras are off? One place where he finds clarity is in nature. Butler spends time hiking, often retreating to quiet corners of California where the noise of fame can't reach. "It's where I can listen to myself again," he shared in a rare interview. And of course, music remains his sanctuary. He still plays the guitar, not for anyone's eyes or ears, but for his own soul. Austin Butler isn't in a rush, and that's precisely what makes his future so fascinating. He's not chasing the next blockbuster, not desperate to stay in the headlines. He's choosing roles that scare him, challenge him, or stretch his understanding of humanity. Beyond Caught Stealing, there are rumors of him eyeing roles in psychological thrillers and even historical dramas. His fans are eager, but Austin, he's patient. "There's a version of me that would have grabbed every shiny opportunity," he once said. "But now, I'd rather wait for stories that demand a piece of my soul." It's that artistic integrity that has critics comparing him to the likes of Daniel Day-Lewis, actors who vanish into roles and emerge transformed. Off-screen, he's also expressed interest in eventually directing or producing, crafting stories that reflect the complexity of human nature, much like the internal worlds he writes about in his journals. But above all, Austin's future seems less about the spotlight and more about substance chasing, not just success, but significance. When people talk about Austin Butler now, they don't just mention Elvis. They talk about transformation, about an actor who doesn't just play roles, he dissolves into them. In a world where stardom is often built on social media antics and viral trends, Butler stands apart. He's quiet, focused, and deeply reverent of the craft. And that reverence is what makes him not just another Hollywood face, but a true artist in the making. Critics, directors, even fellow actors, they see it. That spark of something deeper. That Daniel Day-Lewis intensity. That Christian Bale-like commitment. It's the look of a man who won't settle for surface-level fame. He's in this for the long haul, for the soul work. And audiences feel it too. Watching Austin Butler is like watching someone rediscover himself in every frame. You're not just seeing a character, you're seeing an excavation of identity, pain, beauty, and truth. As he steps into future projects, whether it's a brutal noir like Caught Stealing or a delicate period drama, One thing is certain, Austin Butler is redefining what it means to be a leading man in the 21st century. He's not just the face of a generation, he's its heart and soul.